Hello and welcome to Nana's Crafty Home. My name is Tanya. So I'm going to show you today how to incorporate some Intarsia crochet techniques into your tapestry crochet projects to give you the best end results. Intarsia crochet is when you're working with more than 2 colors per row, and you're not wanting to carry all of your colors for each row. You're dropping and pulling back up into your work throughout your project, and you're going to do that with yarn bobbins. So these are going to be your best friend, and they're going to hold amounts of your yarn, and then you're going to drop and pick up as you work throughout your project. And this project that you see here is actually my Gingham Bunny placemat that I am designing to match my Gingham Bunny table runner. And I wanted to show you a few little tips for this project so that you can get the best quality or the best end project once you're finished. So when I started out at the beginning here, you can see these rows as I'm working these check boxes. I am only using 2 colors for this row. So for these rows, I did carry the unused yarn, pick up as I needed, and drop and carry as I didn't. And I did that throughout those whole rows. Well, once we got to these rows here, you can see on the end, or on each end, so this would be the beginning or the end, I have a couple of check boxes, and then we're working through some white, and then on the end here I've got more. So that means for that row, for each one of those rows, I would need to carry or have 2 non-working colors while working 1 color if I were to carry throughout that row. So you can imagine that if I had carried the navy and this lighter blue through these white sections, that you would have quite a bit of color bleed through, as well as a lot of additional bulk in these sections because of those yarn carries. So instead of carrying, what I chose to do is to drop and then pick up in the next row, because in the next row I was going to be using that same color in the same place. So what I do when I'm going to be doing that, these little bobbins are just perfect for that purpose. So you can see this is the right side, and then this is the wrong side of my project, and you can see all these little dangly bobbins hanging off the back of my work. And that's why I prefer these types of bobbins. This is a clover yarn bobbin. I'll show you one that doesn't have any yarn on it. Very thin, they're made with plastic. They're very light. They hold quite a bit of yarn, not a huge amount, but they're perfect for projects like this where you don't need to have a lot of yarn for each section, and they're not heavy, so they're not going to be weighing down my project as I'm working with it. There's not a lot of added extra weight hanging off of my work. So what I do is I load up my bobbins with the yarn that I'm going to be using, and then I pick up, and I'm going to show you how I do that, pick up and then drop as I'm not using them. So what happens with that is you're going to have a very definite front and back. So it's going to be important that you choose which is the right side of your work and which is the wrong side. Because once you've made that decision, or if the pattern has chosen that for you, is you'll be dropping and keeping all of your yarn bobbins on the wrong side of your work. Now, when you're working the Intarsia Crochet color work technique, it's essentially the same. The stitches are the same, changing colors are the same as tapestry crochet. So when I go to finish this navy, I'm going to be changing colors to this gray, and I'm going to be yarning over and finishing that single crochet stitch with my new color. Now what I'm going to be doing so that the navy is going to be in the right place and give me the least amount of visible pull or float of yarn is I'm going to do what they call a yarn flip. And so what I'm going to do is I have my working yarn, which is this gray silver color, and I'm going to take the navy and I'm going to flip it over that working yarn and drop it on the wrong side of my work. And remember, you're going to want to keep all of your bobbins and you're going to drop your work always on the wrong side. This is the right side, this is the wrong side. So I'm going to make sure that that yarn drop is always on the wrong side of my work. And then I'm going to continue on with my gray. So I've got 5 stitches of that gray. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm not going to finish that gray. Drop it, pull in this lighter blue, finish that stitch. And if you're interested in learning more about color changing in tapestry crochet, be sure to check out my photo and video tutorial part 1 for tapestry crochet, because that's going to go in a lot more detail about that. So here again, I'm going to do that yarn flip. I'm going to pull that gray up over that working yarn and then finishing those 5 stitches. And what that's going to do is that's going to have that yarn exactly where I need it when I come back to pick it up. So that means there will be very little of a yarn jog, if any, that you'll be able to see. This helps your project actually become a little bit more reversible. In this project, it's not really meant to be reversible, but I like to have that backside as clean and professional as possible. So doing this really helps improve the wrong side of your work. So I'm just going to continue on. And you're going to want to set your bobbins periodically, so that way it's going to help you prevent yarn tangles. So if I were to just let this hang off here without setting my bobbin, it'll continue to unravel as I'm working. So it's important that you untangle periodically, and that's going to help the chaos control it a little bit better anyway as you work through your project. Turning, and now I'm working on the wrong side, and I've got 5 stitches. Of this blue. And now I'm going to be finishing that stitch with this gray. And you can see it was right where I needed it to be. And that really hides that little bit of a yarn jog that we have, that little bit of a float, pulling that yarn up into that stitch. Now, we've talked about wrong side, right side. This is where we need to, because we're working from the wrong side, we really need to be aware of where we're dropping that yarn and how we're working over it. So we're going to do that yarn flip again, where I'm going to be flipping that yarn over what I'm going to be working with, but I'm going to drop it on this side, on the wrong side, and then work my next 5 stitches. And so again, when I go to pull it up, it'll be right where I want that yarn to be for my next row. So I'm going to show you how to bring in a color when it's not exactly where you dropped it. So you can see here I've worked my last white stitch and I want to start working with my navy blue, but it's quite a few stitches away from where I'm working here. So I dropped my navy in that previous row right where I last used it, and I want to pull it in to this stitch. So I'm going to yarn over and finish my single crochet just as I normally would. Tighten that white down and hold it. And you can see I have this long float of yarn. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to be working my single crochets into those next stitches over that yarn float to disguise it, to hide it. So just work those single crochets right over that yarn. And so it's easy to do because I had dropped that navy from the previous row and left it on the back side, the wrong side of my work. And you can see that it disguised that pretty well. You don't see that long yarn jog being pulled up into your stitch. And from the right side of your work, you can't even tell. There's no evidence of that. So that's how you would pull your yarn in further away from where you dropped it. So I hope that's given you a good idea on how to add Intarsia crochet techniques into your tapestry crochet project in order to get the best possible, most professional finished project. Thanks so much for being with me. As always, remember to subscribe to my YouTube channel so you never miss a new video. You can head on over to nanascraftyhome.com to find all of my free patterns and tutorials, and I really, really appreciate you being here. Thanks everyone. I will see you soon. Take care. Bye-bye.